This is the sixth and the final session in the series on the Four Noble Truths. And in this session, I'll discuss the fourth noble truth, which is the way leading to the end of suffering. So just to summarize what we've covered so far, the first noble truth explored the suffering that comes from clinging. The second noble truth is what is the cause of clinging, and that's craving. The third noble truth is that there is an end to craving, and which puts an end to suffering. And then the fourth noble truth is what is the way? How do we do it? What helps us? What supports us? And there are two main ways to view and put into practice the fourth noble truth. The way it is generally thought of, it is another list called the Eightfold Path. And I'll come back to that in just a few minutes, but I want to first pause on another way to use and approach the fourth noble truth, rather than being a list of qualities that's really a life. The Eightfold Path is really a lifetime of practice and cultivation. And it's strengthening and building the qualities so that we're able to actualize that letting go and non-clinging more thoroughly, more authentically. There's another way that's not a list of the Eightfold Path. It's something very immediate. We just come in a moment, if you can remember, if we have enough mindfulness and we don't get caught up and lost in things. And so that's part of the reason we do need to practice as laid out in the Eightfold Path, so we are more present more of the time, and we can actually put into practice this quality of letting go and non-clinging. But when the most we can remember in any moment, in any situation, we turn to meet the situation. So if there's some difficulty or suffering, it's not a conceptual, we're not having an idea about it. We're actually experientially connecting with what's going on, and we recognize, oh, this is suffering. And then sometimes it's not clear why, but if we can discern what's going on, it's like, oh, there's some kind of clinging here. Then with the second noble truth, again, we want to have the concepts about it, but there's something immediate and experiential where we can know and feel, experience what's causing this, and we can look to see, is there a craving there, some place where it's causing the clinging we can't let go, because the wanting to either have something, or if it's unpleasant, to get away from it or get it away from us, is strong. And this is going to happen to all of us. It's not a judgment about it. But then, to the best we can, we see, oh, I notice what's happening, there's craving. Third noble truth, if we're able to let go around that, sometimes just by shining the light of mindfulness or awareness is all we need. It's enough. And it allows it to kind of self-liberate or self-let go, or somehow we're able to do it, and we see that there is an end to the suffering when we put an end to the craving. We actually know it. And then the fourth noble truth is something very also direct and immediate. It's like, how did I do it? And you don't want to overthink it. Sometimes it might be worth contemplating it, but we can also just be aware in the moment, I was able to do this, and how did I do it? Again, you don't want to overthink it. That's kind of the immediate application of all of the noble truths, including the fourth noble truth. The main way then that the fourth noble truth is really taught is the Eightfold Path. This is the last session in the series on the Four Noble Truths, and I'm going to say some about the Eightfold Path here. Following this is a new session is starting that is going to focus on the Eightfold Path. There'll be an introductory session, and then at least one and sometimes more sessions on each of the elements of the Eightfold Path. So you can find that also in the same place you find this recording, either on our YouTube channel, perhaps it's on our Metadharma website. So the Eightfold Path are 8 elements or 8 qualities that we cultivate. And each of the elements, traditionally in English, the translation is they start with the word right. I'll go through them all in a minute, but You've probably heard, like, for example, right livelihood, right speech, right effort. So we get this word right. Perfectly fine translation, but there can be different connotations of how we each understand the word right. It's not a judgment of right or wrong in that sense. The word in Pali is samma, and if you look up the Polytext Society, Pali English Dictionary, they say if you look at the etymology of the word, it means to be connected in one with something. And so it's quite lovely, this idea of what are the qualities that we can cultivate, these 8 steps or 8 qualities that are connected in one with our goal, the aim, connected in one with Dharma, connected in one with our highest intentions and aspirations for how we want to live and what we want to develop in ourselves. So it has a very beautiful sense. So if you want to use the word right, which is perfectly fine, the way to think of it, again, without bringing in a judgment on ourselves for all the ways we're going to fall short, because and we're not going to be perfect on any of these. This is a path of cultivation. The way to think of it is, if we had a certain aim, something we wanted to accomplish in any aspect of life, what would be the right thing to do that would lead to that outcome? So, for example, take anything. If you say, play sports, maybe golf, and you're holding the golf club, the teacher will show you that there's a proper way to hold it. If you don't have the right grip, then when you swing at the golf ball, it will tend to fly off and, it won't go straight. It'll go curve off in different directions. You're not holding it properly. When you learn to hold it the right way, then you can get the result you want. So that's the way to think of the word right. One way you often will hear it translated also is wise or skillful. Those are good. I will use the word right just because it's just what typically you hear, and it's just a nice short way to say it. So I'm going to name the 8 elements and just quickly go through them, and then I'll pause and say a little about each one for this session. And then again, if you want to explore this more on your own, there are many, many resources you can easily find. The Eightfold Path is so foundational. Many talks, books, many ways to get more information. Or for some people, they don't necessarily formally study the list, but if you are around in the meditation or the Dharma world for any length of time, there are so many talks you will hear. Over time, you kind of get it and it can stick. So you'll find your own way to see how you relate to the list. So let me just go through quickly each of the 8 elements. They're in a particular order, starting with what's called right view or right understanding. And I'll come back in a moment and say something about that. Second one is right intention, sometimes translated as right thought. It's really having the right intention. Then there's what's called right speech, right action, right livelihood. And then the final 3, right effort, right mindfulness, and right samadhi, or translated as concentration. So that's the basic list. So let me say a little bit about each one. These are all big topics. So what is right view? It's basically there's many layers to it, but for now I think the basic way to think about it is just the basic understanding of what the Dharma is pointing to, what Dharma teachings are, what it's all about, just having a basic framework of what we're trying to aim for. So when we start off, we should have some sense of where we're trying to go, what this is all about. That's kind of it. There's some more I'm going to come back to. It's actually more layers to that idea of right view or right understanding. But that's a basic starting idea. Then the next one, right intention, right? So our intention about how we're going to practice as meditators or Dharma practitioners. What are the qualities we want to cultivate? How do we want to put them into action? How do we want to be in the world? How do we want to show up and interact with others? These are all come out of intention. So these first two, right understanding or right view, and then right intention, these are sometimes put together in a group called the wisdom section. And I'll come back and say more about that grouping. Then the next three are right speech, right action, and right livelihood. They tend to be grouped another group called the morality. Sometimes you'll hear ethics or morality section. I should say for that first group, you don't need to know Pali, but some words are nice to know. And that wisdom section is punya. Punya is the word often translated as wisdom. This second group is sila, and sila is your morality, and it's really considered so foundational for everything. Sometimes just a lot of attention is put just on the sila aspect before even starting necessarily meditation or anything else. We're not going to be perfect about it, but we want to keep the wisdom section of our understanding and our intention in mind for all the times when we do fall short and we need to recommit and acknowledge maybe when we fall short and how we can just reapply ourselves. Right speech, big topic, but it's basically speech that is wise, skillful, doesn't cause harm, and is useful. So a lot more can be said about that. Right action. Now action, everything we're doing here is action. But here it's specifically about how we live because it's part of the morality or sila. So all our interactions and our actions with ourselves, with others in the world, in our communities, that's this right action. In other words, what is a way of acting that creates less and less suffering for others, for ourselves? What's a way of acting, what are our ways of acting that create more happiness or well-being, again, for ourselves and for others? And then so right speech, right action, right livelihood, that's a big topic too. It's basically, livelihood that's not causing harm. In the old text, I won't go into the details, but there were specific types of livelihood that were prohibited that really did cause a lot of harm. Things have gotten more complex in our modern times where you could look at many, many different types of jobs and work that people do that are part of mainstream. We wouldn't say they're wrong in any way, but then people may say, well, that actually does cause harm. Maybe there's things you think are leading to more waste or pollution or many, many different kinds of harm. That's not really, I will say more in the Eightfold Path series coming up because it's a big topic. One way to hold it is reflect on the traditional list, but then just stay in the question if we're having some questions in ourselves about different kinds of work that we may be doing. Is it just to hold that as a question and see what our relationship is with that? So we've got the punya, the wisdom section, right understanding, right intention. We've got the sila, morality section, right speech, right action, right livelihood. And then we've got the final section, right effort, right mindfulness, right samadhi. The samadhi concentration, but that's a funny translation because, well, everybody uses the translation concentration. It's a little problematic because there's so many connotations about what concentration, what's the word samadhi really means and what we mean by concentration. Everybody doesn't mean the same thing. And we have a number of discussions, other series on here that go into that topic in a lot of detail if you want to explore that more. This third section is actually called the samadhi section. So that tells you something about the importance of samadhi, that right effort, right mindfulness, right samadhi are all about cultivating this stability and presence of mind that we call samadhi. So also you'll notice in the sila section is right action. Here in this samadhi section is what we call right effort. So why did they organize it like that? We don't really know the history of how this evolved to be this particular structure that we have today as the Eightfold Path. But the way I think about it, which may not be historically accurate. I like to view everything as being a cogent, coherent whole where all the pieces work in harmony and inform all the other pieces. Again, that may not be historically accurate. Things evolved over centuries before they were written down, and different people may have brought in different teachings in ways that don't really match up. But the way I'm holding it is, given that the right effort is in the samadhi section, there's lots of ways we apply effort, but here it's specifically talking about towards our meditative development and cultivation. That's the right effort. And all the other kinds of efforts that we make are more included under the right action, as far as just the efforts, the actions we're making in our daily life. That's how I kind of separate it out. So we've got these sections. So you notice it started, the first one, with the wisdom section, and then moved through the sila section and into the samadhi. There's another way that the Eightfold Path is often, very commonly organized, where it actually starts with the sila section, and the order is not it's not wisdom, morality, samadhi, panya, sila, samadhi. It's sila, samadhi, panya. The morality is the beginning. Then we do the mental cultivation of the samadhi, which leads us back to a whole nother depth of wisdom. Remember, I mentioned that to begin with, we want to have some, even if you've never reflected on Dharma, don't know much about it, you're new to it, you want to learn a little bit, or a lot, so you understand kind of where this is, what it's all about, what its aims are, where it's aiming. That's a level of right understanding. But now we come back around to it, and we have the maturation of wisdom. And that's a whole big topic of what does that mean when we really come to a depth of understanding and wisdom. So I won't get into that just for time here. Again, that will be more in the Eightfold Path series. So that's enough for now to give a basic overview of the Four Noble Truths. I hope it's been useful, and if nothing else, my recommendation is to just check it out and see for yourself how much you find value, really try it on and put into practice this Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, and then see how much it's supporting for you through your direct, just putting it into practice.